Hi everyone and welcome to the Power 365 show. It's with great honor to have Charles Lamanna on the show. He's the general manager of the application platform at Microsoft, and I'm yet to come across a more genuine, frank, approachable person than Charles. If you come off the show without gaining value from what he has to say, I'd be totally shocked. For show notes, please go to nz365guy.com/75. Now, let's get the conversation started with Charles. Hey Charles, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Excited to talk today.
Yeah, it's good to have you on. It was about this time last year that I interviewed James Phillips on the show, and his suggestion was that I talk to you back then, and that was a year ago, but I handed you off to one of my other colleagues in the podcast network, and they interviewed you, but it's now time that I kind of drilled in some of the questions that I've been getting from the community that I feel that maybe you're the one to answer them.
Sounds great, and better late than never.
So true. Okay, so first of all, tell me about how did you end up in Microsoft? What's your sense of place, home, your family, your hobbies? What are your interests, that type of thing?
Sure. Yeah. So I actually have an interesting Microsoft story. So this is the second time I've worked at Microsoft.
Okay.
So when I was in university, I actually was an intern in a product called OneCare. Since discontinued. And I came back after graduation. I actually worked for 3 years in the early Office 365 days. So basically BPOS-D, BPOS-S, Office 365, if people remember that. Yeah, so I did that for about 3 years, did email routing and things like that within the Exchange group. I left actually to do my own company. The company was called MetricsHub, public cloud, cost management, health monitoring, things like that. Worked on that for a bit, got some decent traction. We were kind of nice and early in that market. I mean, Azure didn't even have VMs at the time. Google Cloud Platform didn't even exist, things like that. Had some success and were acquired by Microsoft. So that's actually, I joined back and that was just under 6 years ago. So about 5.5 years or so.
Wow. So Symmetric Hub is still on your Twitter profile, I see.
Yeah.
And so that was your company that was acquired by Microsoft.
Yep. Yeah, I was the CEO, although it didn't mean very much for 3 people, but but it made for great business cards.
Yeah, so, totally.
Yeah, but and it was great because we were able to come into Azure right when it was getting started. So I worked in Azure for 4 years, or a little over 4 years. As that kind of went from nothing to very clearly the number 2 and starting to challenge Amazon pretty seriously.
Yeah.
And
totally
then
awesome.
About a year and a half ago, I kind of got the call for Power Platform and Dynamics, and then said, this sounds like the next big thing. This is the next Azure. So I switched over here, and I think it's being confirmed to be true as the next big thing for Microsoft. So and that's kind of how I ended up here on the current team.
So there's been a lot of discussion in the last week or so with Satya announcing, his backing of the Power Platform and the future of it, and then James has released and Googs has put some stuff out there as well. So there's obviously a lot of momentum growing in the wider, Microsoft internal community around the Power Platform.
Yep, absolutely. And I think what's great is it's really like in Microsoft's DNA. If you go back and look at Access and Excel and VBA, like this is something that Microsoft's always excelled at, basically bringing developer tools to people who wouldn't classically be developers. And Power Apps, Flow, Power BI, and the Power Platform is kind of the next generation of that, really cloud native, cloud aware kind of version of it. And so I think it's something that goes very naturally with like Microsoft's mission statement where our history lies.
Yeah, and a good security model, right? One of the things Access kind of never had is anybody could build whatever they wanted, and you're kind of at the how would you say, at the risk of whoever built the system to actually what it could do or whether it could be maintained.
Yep, absolutely. I say that's a very common question from people who've been scarred by an Access situation when they look at Power Apps is, how is this not going to be Access all over again? But yeah, the cloud definitely changes that because it is managed by Microsoft. It is secured by Microsoft, and IT admin takeover is possible. Whereas Access, that wasn't really possible because it's on somebody's desktop somewhere. So
exactly. Enterprise security plays a big part of it, doesn't it?
Yep, absolutely.
So tell me about what can we expect in the April release? The notes have come out recently. What are your kind of big wins that you're seeing that are landing in this release?
Yeah, the biggest thing that we've been focusing on, and people who know the Dynamics Power Apps story will be familiar with it, but is what we call like unified platform. So the idea is what's really special about Power Apps and Flow is it's the same platform underneath Office 365 as well as Dynamics 365 as well as standalone Power Platform. But it was kind of formed, I'd say by force. We kind of took the Canvas app concept, which was doing really well in Office. We took the XRM concept, which was doing really well in Dynamics. We jammed them together, created the CDS 2.0 movement, all of those things, and that was the big announcement we did last May in 2018. But for this coming April, we've actually started to really meaningfully start to unify these things together. So things like making sure that Canvas apps and flows and custom connectors work with the solutioning that everybody knows and loves from CDS and XRM, making it so that you can embed Canvas app experiences inside of declarative forms, making it so that the new PowerApps control framework, where you can do custom development for UI controls, the same controls work both in model-driven and canvas-driven apps. So kind of like thing after thing, really making it start to feel truly like that one platform. Because I mean, we have it in brand and in marketing and like 70% product truth, but really I'd say we're getting closer to 90, 95% product truth with the April release.
Awesome. So the Power Apps control framework's been talked about for some time, and the ability to create, some very unique elements or objects, if you like, on the form. How soon we're going to get a release or update and really being able to tangibly start building objects?
So I'd say for anyone that wants to join our private preview, it's ongoing. It's been going on for a while. Feel free to reach out to me and we can get you onboarded. In April, though, so just in April 2019, so not too far from now, we'll actually come back and we'll make that completely publicly available and actually generally available from an API contract point of view. And the cool thing, which we haven't put in the release notes, but I'll tell you, and I'll let everybody that's listening here as well, is that will also include Visual Studio VS Code tooling to build those Power Apps controls as well. So that will actually give a first-class experience inside the developer environment to build the controls. Whereas today, it's very much, I think you have to manually know the contract and the callbacks and things like that, which will make it a lot more efficient and productive to go build those custom controls.
Excellent. So one of the other queries that we've had through the community is that we have the release notes, the release timeframes of April and October each year, but then there seems to be if you like, a period of time for those, like they don't all drop on the 1st of April or the 1st of October. What's your can you explain kind of how you see that working, as in how items kind of land in the platform over the time frame?
Absolutely. So we kind of break up changes into two real categories. The first is what I would call like a disruptive change. A disruptive change is something that maybe it changes an API contract, like introduces a new API version, or changes the way that like UI is laid out. So you have to like go re-educate your end users within a company. And for disruptive changes, we are trying to be very, very disciplined and only doing those in April and October, and to make sure those are available with 2 months of warning, like the February and I think August or whatever. Yeah, in August, where you can actually get a sandbox and test them out. And like a good example of that is the new unified client changes that we're doing for the April release, where we're actually dramatically simplifying the navigation patterns, tests much better with end users, and people in the preview already have much higher net promoter scores that use it. But that's pretty disruptive. So if you've gone and trained your users or built an app that's used throughout your company on the quote unquote old version of unified client layout, this gives you time to prepare for training and things like that. So that's a good example where it's a disruptive change. You'd have to go through a change management process within a company. And those we're trying to keep very disciplined and only be in the April and October releases. However, for other changes, which we call non-disruptive, and those are things that maybe we expose like to admins, like the new storage reporting capabilities we're going to do, where you can see how much, in much greater detail, how you're using your storage entitlements for CDS. Those we don't have to really wait for April or October because they're not going to be very disruptive for any end users. And IT admins are generally, or admins or customizers are generally very sophisticated users where it won't be very disruptive if we do that. So those types of changes may trickle in throughout the year. We still try to get a big bang moment around April and October for marketing reasons and just education reasons, but we'll trickle in changes kind of throughout the year in that category.
So you're getting up to the frequency that, Power BI saw, as it was ramping, where there was almost fortnightly or weekly additions that were, they were non-disruptive, but they
Yep.
were generally massively enhancing features.
Yep.
Um, are,
Absolutely.
are you going to get to that kind of cadence or rhythm?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the position we want to get to, and I mean, we already do this for the authoring experiences and Power Apps and Flow as well as the admin experiences. We actually ship every week, and every week we may not have a meaningful payload, but over a few different weeks, you'll actually see significant features landing there. And that's exactly the focus we want to get to, because from our point of view, this is very early days for Power Platform. I mean, we have a ton of usage and it's growing like crazy. But it's still early days. I mean, I tell my team, think 10 times what we have right now. That's where we'll be in just a couple more years. Um,
Awesome.
and yeah, and you can only get there by shipping innovation all the time. So
Yeah, agreed. So cool, so cool. So talking about the future then, tell us about line of business applications and the way they're impacting work, and I feel like the way they're being created nowadays and why the Power Platform plays a key part in that story.
sure. So when we look at like the our central thesis in terms of how line of business apps are going to be created in the future, really boils down to 2 points. The first is IT application delivery. They want a system that enables rapid, high productivity application and automation and analysis. Basically, clicks, not code, or limited code, or only some code. And the second is that those applications are really tightly related to the business data you already have. You have a SQL database, you have an Oracle database, you have SAP, you have Dynamics, something like that on your back office or front office, and your app almost certainly needs to connect to it. So that's kind of like the two big elements that we see is number one, needs to be very efficient and very rapid app creation or automation creation and things like that. And number two, it needs to connect to the data you already have. That's our core belief, and that's how we're investing. Power Platform is all about that first point, making it easy to rapidly build things. And our data connectors and common data service is all about that second point, making it
Mm-hmm.
easy to quickly connect to all your enterprise data.
Awesome. I'm gonna ask you some more questions shortly around the ISV story and really building applications on that platform. But is there anything you can tell us about what you're expecting to do around the October timeframe and that release window?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the big things that we're focused on is making sure that we can increasingly bring more intelligence to the Power Platform. I don't want to completely spill all the secrets, but we're going to go and inject a lot of AI and machine learning capabilities throughout the platform. So, and things like inside of a Power App in types of controls or on data that exists in the common data service, or even in the case of Flow, analyzing inputs like if you imagine you can trigger off an email with a PDF, and how can you strip out all the relevant information from the PDF? So we're going to bring a lot of intelligence to the platform, and you're starting to see that today for Power BI as well, with our AI and BI capabilities, with some cognitive services like stuff for text analytics and some basic scoring. So the big push that we're doing is how do we go make all of this Power Platform much more intelligent? Because just like we've democratized BI and app creation and automation, we really want to go democratize a lot of the AI and ML capabilities that you see for typical line of business.
Yeah, exciting. It is a gateway for any business considering their AI journey to really get on the Power Platform and then and go on that journey with the technology.
Yep, absolutely.
So there's been a bit of confusion in the market around, if you like, naming, for example, Power Apps, and people go, well, I like Canvas apps or I work in model-driven apps, and there's a misunderstanding in some cases around what are Power Apps in relationship to Canvas apps and model-driven apps. Can you share your thoughts and clarify that story?
Absolutely. And I think that this is a difficulty of our own making on Microsoft's side. But in the end, both Canvas apps and model-driven apps are both Power Apps. And to make a further statement, Dynamics 365 for customer engagement is itself a Power App. I mean, it's a model-driven app, right? So all of those are Power Apps. And in the future, our main focus is we want to make it so you don't have to think that, oh, am I building a Canvas app or a model-driven app? And based on which one you choose, you're limited. Like model-driven supports views and business rules and business process flows, but Canvas apps don't. Canvas apps support connectors, but model-driven apps don't. That is artificial limitation because of some technical history we have. Both are incredibly valuable because we have customers that use one or the other or both for their solution. But what we're going to do and what our main focus is to kind of erase that distinction. So you'll just do file new app, and within that app, you'll be able to do canvas-like experiences or model-like experiences, and everything will work across both. And I think that's we internally are calling that the component model, but that's one of our big areas of focus if we go out over the next 12 months, say into early 2020, is to actually make that true.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. So some clarity. So
Yep.
what about ALM, application lifecycle management? What are your thoughts on the future direction? And if you like, what are the changes you're making to make this much more a robust story in market?
Yeah, yeah. ALM is one of those interesting things. We have various ALM capabilities today with say solutioning in the case of CDS-backed applications, as well as the basic packaging capabilities of PowerApps, Canvas apps, and things like that. So the solutioning that exists in CDS, that is our bet for the future. That's where we're going to be pushing all of our capabilities into for ALM. But some of the work we are doing is we're gonna be doing investments around how do I make it so I can do solution management with source control in a really
Hmm.
first class way. I mean, we
Yeah,
have like the
excellent.
solution packing tool and stuff like that, but very painful. But we're going to make it so you can have a team of 50 people using source control working on a solution together. That's like our top line goal. And to do that, we're going to do things like making it be stable in the textual representation. So like diffing works in source control. We're going to make it so that you can easily package different pieces of a single solution together, so it doesn't end up as a big opaque blob in Git or whatever you happen to use for source control. And we're going to start to do hooks into a bunch of existing CI/CD and project management tools like Azure DevOps and things like that. So you can use that to actually manage your deployments to production when using the Power Platform. And this is a need that is kind of, we're really concerned is actually getting away from us because there's so much usage and so many big teams out there that are starting to use the Power Platform for mission critical workloads with big teams that we didn't see a year and a half ago. We got to
Hmm.
go make sure we give them the right tools to be successful from an application lifecycle point of view.
Awesome, awesome, man. That's exciting. So, part of the plays into the story is what you're making changes around storage. Traditionally, storage has all been set in the one SQL environment, and I understand you're going to do some splitting up of the different type of data sets, and this really assists in the ALM story as well. Can you talk about that in any detail?
Yep, absolutely. So one of our big focuses, and for folks that have been around XRM and CRM from Dynamics for a while will know is it's largely a SQL relational backend. The problem where we've been encountering with our customers is there's a lot of non-relational data that's really important to your business that you need to be able to store and have managed as part of the broader Power Platform story, things like sandbox operations and solutioning. So to do that, we're actually going to introduce three different types of storage capabilities inside of the Common Data Service. And what we call this internally, like this is our heterogeneous storage strategy. So it's these three now, but there could be more in the future as things change. But of course, the three will include first and foremost the SQL relational storage, and all the existing things that you know and love with CDS or CRM will continue to work with that. The second is blob or file storage, which will make it easy to store large content and have a reference to it from the relational store. This is absolutely essential because we're now working with all these government institutions or law firms and things like that where they have tens of terabytes of files that they want to join against relational data in the Power Platform. And it does not work so great in SQL, as people who've been a DBA in their past would know. And then the third type is really we call observational or really I'd say observational is probably the best way that we think about it. But this is a backend that is going to support partitioning, so we can have horizontal scalability, as well as standard NoSQL or key value capabilities. And this is actually implemented on top of Cosmos DB in Azure, so a hyperscale, globally distributed cloud-first database. And those are the three types of storage that we're going to release. And what we're doing as part of this is we're actually also going to change the billing model to reflect kind of what we'd encourage you to do with each of those storage technologies. Like we're going to make it a lot cheaper to store files in the blob storage instead of the SQL database, because that's what we want you to do, and that's what's better from a scale and reliability point of view. But what I think is super exciting about all of that I want to hit on is we're going to make all three of those storage technologies behave the same way from an ALM as well as an environment lifecycle point of view, which means uh, creating a copy will work the same way. It'll copy across all three types of storage technologies, doing disaster recovery between different geographies in the cloud, doing things like actually moving metadata or schema changes between environments. It'll work the same for all three. And that's a really, really important point for us, and why you would say go look at using a Power Platform instead of the raw technology.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. So just to clarify, that third one, the first two stores are quite clear. The third one, is that for storing things like log data? But what type of data sits in that third
Yeah.
database?
Yeah, so the third one, which is like the observational one, great examples are things like log data or audits. And what we're actually going to do is we're going to move audit data out of the core SQL instance for existing CDS customers. We're actually going to move that to the new storage, which is more scalable and cheaper. Same thing for things like plugin traces or async operation based, like for workflow history, things like that. But we also think, and that's kind of a taking existing scenarios and moving into a better storage approach. But we also are looking forward to a lot of new scenarios. And two examples that we really are passionate about is you'll be able to use this as a graph store. And if you actually go look at things like market segmentation or customer base, like understanding, that actually works really well from a graph point of view. And you'll be able to do that on top of CDS as a result of this. And the second is there's a lot of other observational data which doesn't go into CDS or Dynamics today. And that's things like some IoT information or some perception information from cameras that we'll be able to feed into this storage technology. And the reason we can do this now is because we can't have our single monolithic SQL database before scale to support like 100 terabytes and
Exactly.
10,000 TPS. But this will actually be a partition by default, so we can horizontally scale to 50 nodes if we want. And will actually be much more built for those types of scenarios.
Wow, excellent, excellent. So another big change that we've gone through in the last 18 months is around the difference between the classic interface and the unified interface. Where do you see kind of the end or life cycle around the classic interface, which we see in Dynamics 365 customer engagement, and kind of full adoption around the unified interface?
Yeah, so unified interface is something we're super passionate about on our side. Obviously, that's where most of our investment has been in the last 18 months for the new features and capabilities, and for good reason. I mean, if we look at how customers are using unified interface today, it's 2 or 3 times faster than the old web client. We see much better reliability and availability numbers. And we hear a lot better satisfaction from end users as well. And from an adoption point of view, we're at about 25 to 30%, and it's rapidly growing, of all users across both Dynamics CRM and PowerApps are using the unified interface instead of web client. So very, very healthy switching costs, and we haven't even kind of put a lot of pressure there. That's people choosing to move because they feel it's a lot better. And if we go look at the future, I mean, we're probably at least 18 months away until there's like the hard line in the sand to force everybody over to unified interface from web client. But we think that honestly, by the end of this calendar year, 90% plus of users will be on unified client. And that's just based on the current trend lines we're seeing and people switching over anyway. And Run One's kind of lay the bedrock for that by actually getting everybody to one version which supports unified interface. But that's kind of the plan there. And when the time comes and we announce that we're going to end of life web client, we'll give at least 12 months. And I can say we have no plans to do that in the first half of this calendar year to even announce it. So there is quite a runway in front of web client, although we hope and we want customers to flip over to unified interface as fast as possible.
So if people are building from scratch today, it's a no-brainer, right? They've got to go unified interface. And what about the ISVs that are they've built all their IP on the classic experience? Should they be seriously looking at getting that on unified interface, with the customer base switching like they are?
Absolutely. And I mean, to kind of force that to a degree, all trials that sign up for Dynamics CRM today, which is built on Power Apps, that's just unified interface only. That we actually have a switch, and it forces you straight into unified interface. And if you go to what we're going to start doing in the future for like other like sandbox operations, we'll actually have to take an extra step to not have it be unified interface. So we recommend absolutely that all ISVs start looking at unified interface. And of the people and our customers who are moving over, it's actually being most aggressively pursued by our largest customers, who tend to be our largest ISV customers as well. And that's because they tend to have thousands, if not tens of thousands of end users who are very user experience conscious and passionate, and they are much happier with the unified interface and its look and feel.
Yeah, yeah. Excellent, excellent. What's the offline story for unified interface in the coming 12 months?
Yep. Yeah. So for mobile, or for actually, this is a great question. So in terms of how we think about offline, I'll make if you'll forgive me, I'll make a general statement, what I call a meta statement, before I go into specifics. But I'd say I view offline as one of the single most important things for Dynamics in the platform, and that's for two reasons. The first is, if you go look at a mobile experience, people expect it to behave in a quasi offline mode. If you think about how Outlook mobile app behaves, technically it's all running offline. That's why it works great when there's no internet connectivity, and that's why it feels so dang fast. That's what people expect from mobile applications, like what we provide with Dynamics and Power Apps. And the second is, I think there is an immense amount of untapped opportunity for Power Apps and Dynamics in disconnected environments or super high availability environments. And that's things like running on a point of sale or running on something that may not have internet for a day and a half. And that could include not just mobile apps, it's also thick desktop apps that maybe run in a player or things like that, available by Microsoft. And we think this is very important for Power Apps to start reaching the last mile of all line of business apps, and particularly those where it's like 5 or 6 nines availability is a must. And the best way to do that is just be fully disconnected from the internet. So that's kind of like the high level comment. Specifically, what we're doing is we have in April of this year, a big mobile offline improvement release for Unified Client for model-driven applications, where it'll be much higher scale, much higher reliability, and much easier to configure than the historical mobile offline capabilities in the product. And this kind of is step one to that greater vision I just talked about. But there should be a meaningful improvement for the Unified Client mobile offline in April of 2019.
Awesome, awesome. I know a lot of people will be pleased to hear that.
Yep.
Just to wrap out the section, I'm talking on the Power Platform before we look at some ISV story. I've had chats with consultants and implementers in the community, and they consider Power Apps, Flow, and Power BI as like they're nice to have skills. They've been brought up in that Dynamics world. That's their tradition, if you like. Can they afford really not to upskill in Power Apps and Flow if this is their career?
I'd say absolutely not, and I say that not just because I'm super passionate and love the Power Platform, but Dynamics CE runs on the Power Platform, and the cutting edge, world class CE implementations of the next 3 years will make heavy use of a lot of these new Power Platform capabilities. Things like the data connectors, or things like these new intelligence and AI capabilities we're offering, or things like these tailored task-based mobile experiences. Those will all be key to actually delivering a world-class experience on top of Dynamics. And the second thing is, I think it's also, you'd be missing out on some business opportunities. I know right now the demand is growing so quickly for Power Platform, we're actually struggling to place customers with partners just because there's not enough people skilled fast enough on the Power Platform. And I know a couple of people who say the only way they can actually make their life manageable is just keep increasing their price. but
Yeah.
I mean, like, there's just a huge amount of business upside as well. Like a Dynamics and Power Platform sell and implementation looks similar. It's a great way to diversify a business, and it's going to be key anyway to just succeed in Dynamics. So, and that's why, like on the Microsoft side, we actually have the engineering organizations for Dynamics and Power Platform together. I mean, I spend probably 60% of my time talking to CRM or CE customers and 40% of my time talking to Power Platform customers. We think those really are two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, yeah. So in the fullness of time, obviously the workflow tooling that's in the current, if you like, customer engagement Dynamics 365 world, I assume is going to end of life, and Flow is going to be the full end-to-end replacement. Would that be? Would I be under the correct assumption there?
You are, and That's for a few reasons. I mean, the existing workflow experience hasn't gotten love in a long time.
That's
I
real.
mean, that's an understatement, right? But
Hmm.
and it doesn't have like the rich visual experience the authoring that Flow has, as well as the rich debugging and run history experience that Flow has. But the thing I'm most like pushing for about it is just the scale. Like Flow is a natively cloud-built solution. All of its data is outside of the SQL database, so you don't have to worry about like workflows bloating your database or causing extra load. It can scale perfectly horizontally to a huge number of nodes, compute and storage wise. It's just a much better reliability and performance and future looking platform for Microsoft. And that's not to mention what we think is a whole bunch of very exciting features that come inside of Flow that don't exist today in async workflow.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome, awesome. I think that message is very clear then. They need to reskill if you're not skilled in that flow space. So let's change gears, move into ISV. There are many ISVs, they're excited about the future. You know, they've come, let's say, they've seen the XRM story and they see the Power Platform really becoming enterprise scale. What's your kind of message, or what do you see as the opportunity for ISVs, both the traditional ones, those that have been, if you like, in the Microsoft camp for some years, and then also the ones that haven't used the, if you like, the Microsoft tech in the space, but Microsoft's top of mind with everybody, being the number one company in the world, or number one or two at the moment, from a growth perspective. What's you're thinking, or what's the story that you'd be telling ISVs around the opportunity in the Power Platform?
Yeah, so I think there's a few pieces. The first is kind of just like talking about the partners or system integrators that exist for Dynamics should learn Power Platform. If you're an ISV in the Dynamics space, you should learn Power Platform as well, because that's the platform underneath Dynamics. That's the extensibility and build upon model of the future. And what we're doing as part of the Power Platform work is we're doing a bunch of rework, which we'll be announcing over the next 5 months. And this one I can't go into too much detail about, but we're doing a bunch of work to really elevate the commercial support that Microsoft provides to ISVs as long as we're building on top of Dynamics and the Power Platform. And we think that this commercial support will help make a lot of people much more successful. And if people who are familiar with what we've done with Azure in the past around the ISV cooperation efforts, it'll end up pretty similar to that. And the other thing I'd add is the Power Platform is you can use your same dynamic skills to build solutions on top of Power Platform, and those solutions can reach an even broader audience because the benefit of Power Platform is it's not that generally you only have one CRM, right? You don't run like many CRMs for the same sales department, but there are hundreds, if not thousands, of line of business applications in every company. And it's a great way to go find opportunity to deliver value without having to go compete head to head with a first class biz app. And there's a bunch of partners that we're working with and lining up over the next 6 months to go kind of release things that do great extensions in the marketing space or in the sales forecasting space or in the quoting space, things like that, which extend our Dynamics products, but also people who are building full end-to-end applications. I mean, we even have a couple ISVs that are building competing small and medium business CRMs on top of the Power Platform, and that's totally
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Yeah. So that's exciting. So because if I'm reading this right here, you're saying you could actually I won't say forget about Dynamics 365, but let's say put that to one side, and you could build from the ground up a application just on the Power Platform without any dependency on Dynamics 365. But you've of course got all the plumbing, the electricity, the whole security, everything you get kind of with Dynamics. You've got at the platform level. So could you just build without Dynamics 365 being in play at all?
Absolutely. And the benefit of that is you don't have to worry about licensing the Dynamics applications to your customer as an ISV. You're just licensing Power Platform, which keeps the cost a lot lower. But also, it means if you're not even working like in the dynamic space, like you're not in the CRM space or talent space, you can still use the platform without causing a whole bunch of confusion for your customers. And that's what's great about it is if you get an empty CDS or an empty Power Platform instance, that still supports rich entity modeling and customization for the ISV as well as the ISV's customers, the rich security model that exists in Dynamics around teams and business units and hierarchies and things like that, as well as all the great Outlook integration, Microsoft Teams integration, SharePoint integration. You can use all of that as an ISV app, which gives you much faster time to market. And if you build just a solution that runs on the Power Platform, you instantly can go to all 18 geographies where Microsoft has the Power Platform deployed. You can get worldwide reach very, very quickly and very easily.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. One of the concerns that many ISVs have is the lack of protection around IP when building, traditionally in Dynamics 365, specifically with publishing to app source. What are the plans to address this type of challenge that ISVs face?
Yeah, I think there's a few pieces to that. The first is I'd say like the purely malicious IP theft, and then the second is I'd say accidental license abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Well,
and also,
you'll be very familiar with that, right? Because it's
yes,
happened with the Teams license for so
exactly.
long, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
exactly. Like, and say I'm an ISV and I ship some capability into an instance of CDS, and they buy it for 10 users. The other 100 users in that CDS instance could discover and start using it. So what we're going to start shipping and providing later this year is actual license enforcement, including for ISVs. So if you were to be an ISV and say build your amazing people management application on the Power Platform, we would actually enforce that the users that are running your application or even using your entities would have the people management app license. And this is a huge, huge way to create clarity around who's correctly licensed and who's not. Because I would actually say the vast majority of IP leakage or IP theft is of this variety: accidental usage or unintentional usage of IP without paying. This will force the enforcement. So there'll be no way to get around it. And we'll even have reporting and things like that for ISVs so they can see how their solution is being used.
Wow.
And
Excellent. So
yeah,
so that's is that going to be like telemetry data available in the admin center in the Power Platform admin center that alongside your own telemetry data?
yes. Yeah. So starting April or May of this year, we're going to actually have a new ISV developer portal where if you're a registered ISV, and I think that's when we'll start the preview, so it won't be open for everybody, but this
Yeah,
summer it'll
yeah.
be open for everybody. But this portal will actually expose to ISVs information about who's using your app, like how many users, which tenants, if they're seeing errors, what's performance look like, what's net promoter score look like. So you actually have this cockpit to run your ISV on top of the Power Platform. And the way we look at it is we want people to build on Power Platform because there's tons of value there without having to compromise in some of the things you'd get if you actually say built it as a professional dev on top of Azure. Um, and for the malicious IP theft, we are looking in terms of how we can actually provide more protection around the content, so that you can't really export it or clone the forms and things like that. So we are working through that, and there's a ISV certification process that we're looking at becoming much more structured and rigid, which would also protect against that. So an ISV couldn't say republish or repackage the same content and resell it to other customers. So there are protections for both. Our primary focus right now, though, is that second one I was talking about, the people that are accidentally leveraging the
Yeah.
license, but we are
Mhm.
still tracking the first one.
Awesome, awesome. So when will we have kind of an iTunes of App Store, if you like?
Mhm.
And I've had discussions around, it's never going to be like an iTunes model, but if you like, why shouldn't that be the goal of AppSource or whatever it gets called in the future? I mean, you've intimated or hinted towards a similarity to Azure and what's happened there, but I just know that there's kind of can we get to a model at some point where people can pay and plug and play and get underway with using the tech? That's if you like that friction free from the app source or whatever it's going to be called in the future.
That is 100% our goal, and I'd say I expect us to get pretty close to that this calendar year. You may not be transacting through AppSource because there's some nuance, because a lot of our customers don't actually want that. They'd rather like go get a contract as opposed to buy it like you would from iTunes. But our goal is to have a 5 seconds to sign up for an ISV experience in AppSource and within 5 minutes have it running and wowing the customer. We call that 5 seconds to sign up, 5 minutes to wow. And that is our goal, absolutely. And there's some major improvements that we're doing that will launch around Inspire this year, like our Inspire conference for partners and ISVs, which I think in July. So they expect a big package of news exactly around this, because we like our ideal state is Power Platform almost becomes like the Biz App OS of the cloud, right? Like if you're going to go build a Biz App, you just target Power Platform, just like people
Yeah.
who want to build an app target Windows.
So yeah, I mean that can't really happen enough because even you talked about the ISVs that want to have a contract or a subscription in place. I mean, iTunes supports all those type of models. So, but I can see there's definitely always going to be a need for some type of other relationship in play. But it would be great to get as close to that as possible.
Yep.
Because AppSource is a long ways away from
No
from
kidding, no.
that.
But
Yeah.
yeah, and I think there's a lot, I'd say, not to bore with the technical goo or make excuses, but I think there's a lot of reasons for that historically. But a lot of the modernization efforts we've been doing around Run One and are moving all of Dynamics CRM to Azure and merging together Power Platform and Dynamics platforms has all been kind of clicking together over the last 18 months to make it so that we're in a position where we can actually go tackle something like this and make AppSource truly like an iTunes like App Store experience.
Yeah, fantastic. I see in the last period of time, there's been a heap of investments made in App Checker, Solution Checker, and Flow Checker. What's the impact this is having that you guys are seeing?
Yep. Those are my three favorite features, the checkers. Because what I joke with the team is, as I say, we make it super easy to build apps or automations or solutions, but we don't make it very easy to build them well. So that's what the checkers are all focused on doing. And one of my favorite examples is we had a customer who they ran a solution, the solution checker against the implementation of Dynamics CRM, which was heavily customized, identified a couple thousand errors and issues like that. They fixed the majority of them, and they actually saw their end user NPS go up by almost 20 points, which is a huge uplift in the NPS category. And this is a big deployment. This is a Fortune 100 company, so not I'd say like amateur Dynamics admins. So there's a lot of value. And what I would recommend anyone that's doing any customization of Dynamics CE or anyone that's working on Power Platform is use these checkers religiously. Make it part of your check-in process, make it part of your project delivery process, and don't promote solutions to prod environments unless it actually gets a clean pass of the solution checker.
Yeah, nice. So and which portal are they accessible from?
So they're accessible from the web.powerapps.com experience, has both the app checker as well as a solution checker. So you have to go to the new modern experiences for customization of Dynamics CE. And within flow.microsoft.com, so just right inside the Flow Designer is where we also have the Flow Checker experience.
Yeah, awesome. Just one thing before I pivot to another topic of interest is how soon do you see there won't be a need, if you like, to go to the classic experience or classic user interface from an admin perspective? In other words, everything that kind of sits under settings now, most of it's been ported across to the Power Platform Admin Center. How long do you kind of like finish that work? Do you envisage?
So that's our top priority. I'd say in the first half of this calendar year, we plan on making the default of clicking customize and kind of the settings panel to be to launch you to the new experience as opposed to Solution Explorer.
Yeah.
And to do that, we expect that the super majority of users will not have to leave the web.powerapps.com experience. There's still some long tail stuff that we won't have in the next 4 months. But we expect like 80% plus of users, and which we can inform based on our telemetry. We expect 80% plus to be able to live entirely in that new experience. And I would say people that are using it today or as you use it, send us the feedback because we listen super intently to what the community and what our customers tell us. And now's your chance. All those annoying things that take a huge number of clicks or take you forever to do today, we are super focused on cleaning those up and making it super fast and highly productive, including for power users.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, that's very cool. Very cool. Let's switch gears and talk a bit about artificial intelligence. It's kind of a passion topic of mine, and I know that you're interested in it as well, and have a lot of thoughts on it. it's a concept that's been around since the 1950s, the whole idea of artificial intelligence. But in the last 20 to 30 years, we've seen the introduction of machine learning, and we're now moving into an area of deep learning. How do you see this impacting the future of the Power Platform?
Yeah, so the way we look at artificial intelligence, we look at just like any other component that we deliver to the Power Platform. That's historically a professional development tool. We want to go democratize it and commoditize it so power users and business analysts can use it. So if we go look at, say, like machine learning or advanced AI capabilities like deep learning or reinforcement learning or just simple, I'd say like linear predictions and things like that, we want to go package those up to provide those same types of capabilities directly inside of the common data service and Power Apps and Flow, as well as Power BI. So that is exactly the direction we're heading, is to go democratize AI the same way we've democratized BI as well as app construction and automation. And we're going to do that by not by going and creating necessarily a new top line product, because AI generally isn't super valuable on its own. Much more valuable, much more interesting in the context of an application or in the context of analyzing some data or displaying some data or in the context of an automation. So it's going to be really about, in a first-class way, infusing artificial intelligence and machine learning across the entire Power Platform. And lots of things will be lighting up. I say stay tuned over the next 6-7 months. There's a lot of really exciting stuff lighting up in that space.
Awesome. So when you talk about democratizing, are you meaning that I don't have to go out and, employ a team of my own data scientists to actually invent, if you like, this stuff or create um, those models and if you like, train the learning? Are you saying it's going to be more accessible to the the architects, the developers, the functional consultants working on the platform?
Absolutely. So our goal is, if you are a standard Dynamics CRM customizer, you will be able to go bring AI into your implementation. And that means no data scientists. That means no Python, no reading papers and choosing the right algorithms. We'll actually bundle that up and provide an experience where we can guide you through, hey, here's our recommended configuration, and you can test it out on your sample data in the common data service. And we can tell you how effective we think it is from a false positive and false negative rate, say for things like prediction, and help you make the calls to whether or not you want to publish that model or you want to try something else. And that whole idea of not requiring data scientists or expertise in deep ML is what's driving us. We want to we think that role is very important. So it's not like we're getting rid of that role, but we want to make it so you don't need to do that in the biz app or line of business app space, because it's overkill. And just about every customer I talk to says, I am at a complete loss because I don't have the data scientists, I don't have the expertise to go do that. But we're going to bring it so that all your line of business apps can actually be intelligent. And I mean, the way I look at it is, we got 1,000 developers and product managers and data scientists at Microsoft working on the Power Platform. Let us go invest in kind of making these things generalizable and reusable and consumable for our customers, instead of having to have each of our partners and our customers invest themselves.
So now this question doesn't relate anything to the Power Platform, but what are your thoughts around writing code and improving on its own code, and ultimately even editing its own code? How far away do you think we are from that point where, software will have, if you like, that intelligence built in that it could actually improve itself without necessary human interaction?
So I think this is one of the AI is a super interesting thing, because I think the reality and what actually happens is distorted to a degree. Because I would say, at the limit, we have that kind of in two places today. The first is one of the technologies that exists inside of Excel, which we've brought to Power BI and we're bringing to Power Platform, is like coding by example. And what this is you basically can select a sample set of data, and it will actually generate a computer program automatically that will be able to analyze and make predictions in the future. And this is different than machine learning. But like this, if you go to Excel, like the autofill stuff, it's kind of like that. And that's actually a computer program literally generating a program to go parse that information. And then the second is, if you look at what we're going to be doing for the AI capabilities, you'll be configuring a set of input data, like a source, say like an entity or table from the common data service. and configuring things like you want to optimize for. And we, the platform in the background, will be retuning that model all the time. So we'll actually be making it smarter as you get more data in the system. And that way we can make sure there's not model drift and that you actually don't lose accuracy over time. And that's I think the real power. But I wouldn't quite call that as like super intelligent though. You know what I mean? But we do think that the beginning of that is starting to appear. If that makes sense. And like
Yeah.
another good example I think of where we're doing that is we actually have made it too where you can draw and this is in preview, super private preview, but I think it's going to be public imminently, where you can actually draw a like business process in Visio, and then we will use AI to convert that to Microsoft Flow.
Gold, fantastic.
Yeah. So and I think so that's kind of the beginning of those examples of how you don't necessarily know that you're writing a program, but a program is being generated in the background. But it's not like you'll be able to walk up and say, I have a problem where I want to inspect car tires, and we'll generate an app for you automatically, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yet.
Yes, exactly. Developers and power users still have a job. I'll be really nervous when you can just do that. You can convert a spec to software. That'll be a scary time to be a developer.
Yeah, I give it 10 years of that.
Well, hopefully there'll be whatever power specs or something that Microsoft will ship in the Power platform.
Yeah. So final question before we get on to some quick fire. The keyboard and the mouse is still the most common form of input. How do you see this changing?
So I think it depends on the environment, and I think the reality is we're going to move to a future of heterogeneous like input types. Like if I'm at my desk, I mean, my monitor, keyboard, and mouse is just the most efficient way to work. But if I'm out mobile, obviously the phone's the best approach. But if I'm a field worker and I have to be hands-free, and I'm looking at like a device I'm repairing, then something like the HoloLens makes a lot of sense, right? Because I need both hands to actually work on the equipment, so I need something to overlay in front of me. Similarly, we're doing all kinds of interesting experimentation around, hey, what would change if you went to something like an augmented reality view, even at your desk? Like, how would that change, say, how you build stuff or how you consume data or information? So we do experimentation with those things, but I mean, just the keyboard, the mouse, and the monitor is just really efficient. It just isn't very portable or very practical in the field. So we think the future is one where there's just many different types of input controls and things like that. And that's why things like PowerApps are really important, because you don't have to go learn Unity to build something on HoloLens. We actually have PowerApps already running on HoloLens. So that's kind of the exciting capability of a tool like Power Platform, is you don't have to go learn the technology for each of these form factors.
Yeah. But how soon though do we get something like Neural Lace, where we can get plugged into the IT as such, or into the program?
That would be, I think we are a ways away from that. But I think it depends. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if there are use cases where that matters, like deeply. But I think we lack the specificity at a high throughput level right now. But I don't know if there's all kinds of cool stuff out, like where people can control like drones and stuff like that based on electrical signal that's in their arm. And I can't remember, there's a Y Combinator company that does that. So I think those form factors start to appear, probably less in the information worker category right now, which is where Microsoft likes to play a lot. But I do think it's something that will show up over time.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, let's do some quick fire, which is really me asking a question. You just fire the first thing out that comes to your mind.
All right.
Do you have any hidden talent outside of work that you really share?
Oh, probably not.
Okay, that's fine.
I'd say I feel like sometimes I was born for one thing only, and that's software. So,
classic. Yeah. What's the one thing you've always wanted to do and haven't done yet? Kind of like a bucket list.
Let's see. I'd go skydiving. I think that'd be interesting. I have a terrible fear of heights. That's why I haven't done it, but I think it'd be pretty exciting to do. So
yeah, it's awesome. That, and then follow it up with a bungee. Yeah. Do them both in New Zealand. You'll never forget it.
I'll never go back to New Zealand.
No, you'll love it. What's the one productivity tool that you couldn't live without?
Outlook. And Outlook on the phone is my favorite mobile app. It's just fantastic. So,
if you had a second life, what would you be doing?
Let's see. I'd probably be like a professor or something.
Hmm.
Do like math. I mean, that was a really big passion of mine growing up.
Wicked. Yeah, cool. What new technology do you think will transform our future?
I think AR, augmented reality,
Awesome.
and I think this from like a work point of view compared to VR, but I think AR is going to do a lot of interesting things.
Yeah, agreed. I just can't wait to get my hands on a headset. It's one of my focus areas this year to kind of, take what I've learned in dynamic space and apply that to various business scenarios and see where we can go. What do you recommend? Who do you recommend as a guest for the podcast in the future?
Hmm. And this is how you get your next guest every time, isn't it? It's a chain
Well,
that doesn't
well,
stop.
it didn't happen with you, right? Because when I first asked you, I got 5 other guest recommendations
Yeah.
before getting you on, which I'm 3 deep so far. I've got
Yep.
2 others in your
Yep.
direct reporting lines to talk to, but
So
this has been fantastic. Yeah.
And I'm sorry, have you done one with Googs yet?
No. As in,
Googs would be
yeah,
great for
I'll
particularly in the ISV space.
yeah, but he also has a good background in AI as well, doesn't he?
He does, yeah.
Which,
So he
yeah,
led a lot of the innovative AI efforts within Microsoft before kind of
yeah,
taking over the ISV effort for Dynamics and Power Platform. But I mean,
yeah,
he knows the whole story of all those programs from Microsoft. So I think he
yeah.
would be a fantastic guest to have.
Yeah, awesome. I might get you to do the introduction. Although
Okay.
I keep poking him on Twitter and at other channels because I'm so pleased he's come across to the BizApps area and bringing his expertise because I think it's
Yeah.
going to be tremendously valuable. Last question, and this came from the audience: iOS or Android?
iOS. I love
Okay,
iOS.
there
I'm
you go. You're
sorry.
an iPhone user, so same
I,
here, same here.
I had an iPhone at Microsoft back when it was dangerous to have an iPhone at Microsoft.
Pre-Satya days, eh?
Yep.
Awesome. Charles, it's been great to have you on the show. Before you go, if people want to follow you online, where can they kind of connect?
2 best places in order. First, is just to reach out to me on LinkedIn, connect or shoot me a message, and then second would be on Twitter. Always available there. And like the biggest thing I would say to anyone that uses any of the products that we work on, I would love to hear from you where things go great and where things go wrong. Because I mean, everything we build is informed by what our customers tell us. I mean, that is how we guide all of our planning and implementation. So the more noise, the better.
Thanks for listening. Would love to hear from you. Please feel free to ask and connect with me on any of the social media platforms apart from TikTok. If you're an ISV and want assistance, have you considered powerisv.com? Check them out to gain access to experts in the ISV space. If you enjoyed this show, can you please take a minute to leave a review on your podcast app or on the show notes page? The full show notes can be found at nz365guy.com/75. Hey, bye for now.